All right, what's up, everybody? This is Randy with RealMMANews.com. I'm going to keep this super short today. We've got UFC Fight Night 85, Frank Mir versus Mark Hunt tonight. We're going to touch on that briefly, but the last couple days, and this is March 19th right now, so we're a couple weeks out from UFC 96, McGregor losing to Diaz, and all reports are that there's going to be a rematch at UFC 200, and they're going to main event. So Diaz versus McGregor 2, and this is just a bad fucking idea. And I'm shocked that the UFC would allow this to happen right now. And it's for simple reasons. Basically, let's play this out. Let's say Conor wins the rematch. Still got a 145-pound belt that's not defended. So they go 1-1. And it matters, and I haven't heard yet if it's going to be at 170, 155, and that'll matter. Conor will be able to prepare for Diaz, I guess, but more importantly, Diaz can prepare for Conor. He was sitting on a beach in Cabo, drinking shots, smoking dope, not getting ready for a fight, but in 10 days he went in there and he overwhelmed and broke McGregor in the second round. Sure, McGregor was doing good to that point. He had a shitty game plan. He fought like shit. Was trying to knock Diaz out, and a lot of people probably would have been knocked out, but we're not going to analyze the whole fight again, but the rematch is just such a piss poor idea. If Diaz wins, then what do you do with McGregor? You got a 145-pound champ, lost two in a row in another division, looked like fight when it was over, got choked out. It's no win, I don't think. I just don't see a big upside. Sure, maybe he wins and knocks Diaz out, but then, he needs to defend his belt. And if Diaz wins, that's going to take a lot of what's left of the shine off McGregor. Part of the whole mystique was his story, his confidence, his air of invulnerability. And sure, that was broke some, but a lot of fans, especially casual fans, can make excuses. He went up in weight, it was short notice, he just wasn't efficient with his energy, like he said. Probably needs to get rid of the man bun movement, grab ass guy. So I just don't see a big upside. Sure, their UFC make a ton of money. UFC 196, second largest event they've had as far as pay-per-view buys, 1.5 million, second only to UFC 100, Mir versus Lesnar. And they'd probably do 2 million buys at UFC 200, especially if they stack some more great fights on there. But that's a one-time shot, and if Conor loses, you lose your biggest star, your superstar. The biggest star MMA has ever seen does not need two losses in a row. And why make this fight other than money? I'm sure McGregor wants it. He wants revenge. He's got an ego. But the UFC needs to put the kibosh on that shit. Tell him to keep counting the goofy shirt money and go down there and defend against Aldo. Get back in the groove. Maybe Edgar. I think Aldo's a better match for him. But I think Diaz is going to continue to be a horrible match for him, and the shit just doesn't need to happen. And it's going to be a huge mistake if it does. That's my prediction. So anyway, enough of that. Let's jump onto this fight card tonight. Mir versus Hunt. There's actually some decent lines. There is some decent, parlay bets that you can make. Really close on a lot of these good fights. Mir and Hunt. Mir is plus 120. Hunt is minus 130. I can see Mir winning this in a few different ways, and I can, of course, Hunt. He can knock anybody out. He's got great takedown defense. So there's some good opportunity there with Mir at plus 120 if you're into that. The co-main event's another good one, Hector Lombard versus Neil Magny. This is almost a toss-up at minus 110 for Lombard, plus 100 for Magny, and I think this is Magny's fight to lose. Lombard's old, he's coming off suspension, probably not being able to do the juice. Really, really, really good fight. But I think it's Magny's to lose. Jake Matthews and Johnny Case, literal toss-up, minus 105 for both. I favor Matthews in this. But Johnny Case, he's been around. He could do his thing. So it's a really, really close fight. You can't go wrong betting on either of these, I don't think. So take that for what it's worth. Here in a minute, I'm going to tell you some parlays I put together. I think that's where you'll find the most value on this card. Next fight would be Antonio Carlos Jr. against Daniel Kelly, and this is just a squash match. Jr. is minus 475. and Kelly is plus 420. I just stay away from that fight. Junior should starch him, but who knows? Another interesting one is James Tahuna at minus 260 and Steve Boss at plus 240. Boss could win this. At plus 240, that's tremendous value. I think he could end up starching Tahuna. I don't remember the last time I saw Tahuna fight. I don't think it's recent. As a matter of fact, let me just check on that. Probably should have done this before I started, but what the hell? I'm really curious the last time he fought and Bossy's fought recently. Sure, he's got a loss and a win in there, but he's got power. He's got some explosiveness. He doesn't know what he doesn't know yet, so he could go in there and just guns blazing, and he could end this fight. So don't count him. He is on a. Let's see, is that, yeah, Tahuna's, oh shit, he's on a 3-fight losing streak to Teixeira, Shogun, and Nate Marquardt. His last win was a decision against Ryan Jimmo, so, sheesh, that's a tough one. I favor Bossy in this, like I said. It's been a while. It's been since June 2014 since Tahuna's fought. I think he had an injury of some kind, and Bossy's coming off that KO head kick by Thiago Santos. This is his second UFC fight. I win this fight, so that's some tremendous value there if you're looking for somebody plus 240 for Boss. Beck Rawlings and Siho Ham or Sihi Ham, whatever it is, another toss-up minus 105 each. I favor Rawlings in this. She's been training and living with Dominic Cruz and training that alliance. She's been out with an injury. Ham's no joke. Neither one of these ladies are going to be champs one day, I don't think. Again, it's a toss-up. I favor Rawlings, but it's nothing I feel strongly about. Alan Jabane against Brendan O'Reilly. Another squash match. Jabane is minus 525 to O'Reilly's plus 450. You just got to stay away from that one. Jabane should, handle him good, but, who knows? If you know something about Brendan O'Reilly that I don't, then plus 450. Jump on that shit. Hooker and a Diva, minus 180 for Hooker, plus 168. Again, I don't have a strong feeling Hooker should win that. Be good to slip in a parlay. Chad Laprice, Ross Pearson is the other really interesting fight. Again, minus 110, plus 100, almost a toss-up fight. It just depends which Ross Pearson shows up. He's inconsistent. He's got all the skills in the world. He has poor fight IQ sometimes in the octagon. Laprice is legit. He's favored slightly. I really think Pearson, if he uses his skill, if he uses his IQ, he should win this fight. That being said, half the time he doesn't. He gets hit. He wants to throw hands. So a good line there, especially if you want to slip in a plus 100 into a parlay. That's my thought there. The other one that might be interesting is Leslie Smith and Ren Nakai. Ren Nakai is not good at much of anything. Her record's really inflated. She's at plus 130. Leslie Smith is minus 140. Leslie Smith, just marches forward and throws hands and just acts crazy and doesn't use a lot of strategy or IQ. But I have a hard time seeing her losing this fight to Ren Nakai. So, again, there's another interesting match. Let me tell you some parlays I came up with that I am playing tonight. I am taking Frank Mir at plus 120. I'm taking Neil Magny at plus 100. I'm taking Jake Matthews at minus 105. And I am taking, where was my other one? I am taking Beck Rawlings at minus 105. And that gives me plus 1577. So basically almost 16 to 1 on those 4 fights. Easily could win all those fights. So that's a good parlay. Again, Mir, Magny, Matthews, and Rawlings. 4-fight parlay for plus 1577. Some good value there. Another good parlay that I will be checking out is taking Mark Hunt at minus 130. Lombard, minus 110. Let's see, what was my other one? I'm going to throw Steve Bossy in there at plus 240. And that gives me a plus 10.48, so almost 10.5 to 1 essentially on those 3 fights. Again, easily winnable. Some different combinations there. Even if you want to put $5-10 on there, put $10 on that, you're doing pretty good. 10 to 1 odds. How can you beat that? A lot of people like to bet straight up on MMA fights, and that's good in some cases, but I'm always looking for value, and I'm looking for low risk and high reward. You're talking a 4-fight parlay is giving me 15 to 1, a 3-fight parlay 10 to 1, and these are all winnable fights. So again, Hunt minus 130, Lombard minus 110, Steve Bossy at 240 plus 240. That's the big question mark in there. At 10.48 or 10.5 to 1 essentially. There's some different combinations there, especially on the lower cards. So if you want to look at some of those, you can even stack some of the really, really heavy favorite fights. If we put Alan Jabane at minus 525, if we put in Carlos Jr. at minus 475, then we need to find some value somewhere, like Leslie Smith at minus 140. And we could throw in, either Tahuna or Boss. Tahuna's the favorite, but minus 260, but I think Bossy's going to do good. So you could throw that in there. Beck Rawlings again. Let's put Beck Rawlings in there at minus 105. And let's put Neil Magny in there at plus 100. So there's a 4-fight parlay, or a 5-fight parlay with plus 865. So that's some good value there with at least 2 or 3 locks. Pretty sure they're locks anyway. But again, you can find some good value there. Put $10 on that, $80, $85. That's a good way to approach some of these cards with kind of middling talent. So check that out. Run some parlay numbers. Again, parlays, you can get a lot of value in MMA for parlays. We'll talk more about that in another podcast. But for now, I am out of here. I'm going to get ready to watch some fights, guys. Appreciate all the support on Twitter and Facebook. Again, thanks to everybody for supporting us, sharing these. Check out our Facebook page, realmmanews.com. Check out the website, realmmanews.com. And my Twitter is at Randy Lehman. Give me a follow, give me a shout, hit me with more questions, talk about your bets, talk about your thoughts on McGregor. I want to hear, what everybody's thoughts is. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe McGregor, Diaz too. I love the fight, but I just hate the ramifications. So it is what it is. So we'll talk more later, guys. Love you guys.